Russia criticized the U.S. for robbing assets, threatening to inflict painful blows. Leopard tanks suddenly appeared in Moscow. Potential candidate for Donald Trump's deputy position revealed. Russia criticized the U.S. for robbing assets, threatening to inflict painful blows. Deputy Chairman of the Russian Security Council Dmitry Medvedev warned that the response to the U.S. confiscation of Moscow's assets would be painful for Washington. Vice Chairman of the Russian Security Council Dmitry Medvedev said on April 27 that Moscow would not be able to respond adequately to the U.S. confiscation of Russian assets, and criticized Washington's asset theft. "We cannot give a completely proportionate response to America's audacity in blatantly stealing our assets," Mr. Medvedev said. However, according to the former Russian president, this does not mean that Moscow's response will be less painful. The reason is clear. We do not hold a significant amount of U.S. state assets. Therefore, our response cannot be proportionate. This means we can confiscate assets, for example by court order, to the assets of individuals under Russian jurisdiction, Mr. Medvedev added. Mr. Medvedev mentioned the movable assets and real estate of Americans on Russian territory, as well as the investments, properties and other savings of American citizens. Mr. Medvedev proposed enacting a law that would allow Russia to confiscate the assets of citizens from unfriendly countries. According to him, Russian law should not only provide for restricting the rights of foreigners, but actually ending their rights to enable the forced confiscation of assets of entities from unfriendly countries, and transfers to individuals, entities and the Russian government. He added that this will require certain changes to Russia's civil code. On April 24, the U.S. Senate passed military aid bills for Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan. One of the bills allows Washington to confiscate Russian assets to support Ukraine. After Russia launched a special military campaign in Ukraine in February 2022, the U.S. and its allies banned transactions with the Russian Central Bank and Finance Ministry, and blocked about $300 billion of Russian assets. Russia is in the West, mostly in Europe. Most of these assets are bonds and deposits in euros, USD, and pounds. Top U.S. officials want to seize Russian assets to help rebuild Ukraine, while some European bankers and officials worrying that asset seizures would set a dangerous precedent. The Kremlin has repeatedly stated that any action to confiscate assets would go against all the principles of the free market set by the West and would reduce confidence in the USD and the euro, and at the same time hindering global investment and weakening confidence in Western central banks. Some Moscow officials say that if Russian assets are confiscated, the assets of foreign investors trapped in special accounts known as C-types in Russia could face the same fate. Similar, it is unclear exactly how much money is in these accounts. Chairman of the Russian House of Representatives, Vyacheslav Volodin said on April 22 that Russia has grounds to confiscate Western assets. Mr. Volodin said that of the $280 billion in Russian assets frozen abroad, only $5 to $6 billion is in the United States, while about €210 billion to $124 billion is in the European Union. Leopard tanks suddenly appeared in Moscow. Dozens of Western war machines captured by Russia will be displayed at Victory Park in the Russian capital on the occasion of Victory Day celebrations. Moscow is completing preparations for the upcoming Victory Day celebration, with many military equipment donated by the U.S. and NATO allies to Ukraine being seized by Russian forces. It will all appear in a grand display opening next week. According to videos shared on social networks on April 27, a German-made Leopard 2 tank was brought to Victory Park, where there is a museum about victories in the wars of 1812 and 1945. It was seized almost undamaged near Avdiivka last month. Another Russian trophy brought to Victory Park on April 27 was the Soviet-designed T-72 main battle tank. Ukraine has lost hundreds of T-72s in the ongoing conflict with Russia. Western donors do not know how many more aircraft they need to support Ukraine to replace Kiev's battlefield losses. Over the past week, the trophy collection in Moscow has been augmented by U.S.-made M113 armored personnel carriers and Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, as well as German-made Marder 1A3 FVS. Other vehicles include the YPR 765, the Dutch M113 modification, and the Turkish Kirpi MRAP. A Ukrainian-made Azovets armored vehicle was also brought to Moscow. In summary, 30 armored vehicles from 12 countries will be displayed when the exhibition officially opens on May 1st, including weapons made by the US, UK, Germany, France, Czech Republic, Sweden, Austria and Australian manufactured or supplied. The trophies will be on display all month, as Russia celebrates Victory Day on May 9th, the annual commemoration of its victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. Some will then likely be displayed at the Kubinka Tank Museum in Patriot Park, outside Moscow. Potential candidate for Donald Trump's deputy position revealed. Potential candidates to become Mr. Trump's deputies. A vice presidential candidate can help Donald Trump attract support from specific groups of voters. Previously, former Vice President Mike Pence, a traditional politician and conservative Christian, was Mr. Trump's powerful right-hand man during the 2016 and 2020 election campaigns. However, Mr. Pence's refusal to comply with Mr. Trump's request to overturn the 2020 election caused him to be labeled a traitor and become the target of extremists in the attack on Capitol Hill, January 6, 2021. After his failed presidential bid this year, Mr. Pence recently said in an interview that he would not support Mr. Trump. According to The Guardian, the former president has 3 priorities when choosing a partner in the election race, including someone who shows loyalty, has the qualities for this position, and finally knows his position clearly and does not do it wrong, dominate Mr. Trump during the campaign. Below are potential Republican members who could be nominated by Mr. Trump as vice presidential candidates. Mr. Greg Abbott, 66 years old, governor of Texas. The politician from Texas is loyal to Mr. Trump and takes a hard line on border security. Mr. Abbott also participated in many legal confrontations with President Joe Biden's administration. In an interview with Fox News Channel in February, Mr. Trump said that he would strongly consider Mr. Abbott for the position of vice president. Mr. J.D. Vance, 39 years old, Ohio State Senator. Once a critic of Mr. Trump, Mr. Vance is now an ardent supporter of the former president and has vowed to fight for the working class by fighting liberals, who are in the upper echelons of government, business, media, entertainment, and American academia. He also shares Mr. Trump's populist views on immigration and an America First foreign policy toward Ukraine. With his young age, Mr. Vance is considered a new breeze for the Republican Party. Ms. Nikki Haley, 52 years old, politician. The former governor of South Carolina and former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations under Mr. Trump is said to be able to defuse attacks that the former president is sexist and racist, but Mr. Trump and those who follow the Make America Great Again MAGA movement may not support Nikki Haley, when she is the last candidate to face Mr. Trump in the party's primary election. Republicans, as well as repeatedly questioning the age and mental acuity of the former White House leader. The two also have different stances on the issue of aid to Ukraine. Mrs. Sarah Sanders, 41 years old, governor of Arkansas. She was the longest-serving press secretary during Donald Trump's term, promoting the former president's agenda and affirming that her superiors were not racist or sexist. Last year, Ms. Sanders took office as the first female governor of Arkansas, and is also the youngest governor in the United States. Ms. Sanders' father is Mike Huckabee, a former governor and former pastor, which could help attract support from Christian voters. Ms. Elise Stefanik, 39 years old, New York State Representative. The politician from New York is holding the position of chairman of the Republican Conference in the House of Representatives, the fourth largest position in this party's political group in the House of Representatives, and was one of the first people to support Mr. Trump. She was the one who in December 2023 questioned the principals from 3 leading universities in the United States about anti-Semitism on campus, with the result that 2 principals resigned. Ms. Stefanik once said that those convicted in connection with the Capitol Hill riot were hostages, a term also used by Mr. Trump. Ms. Kristi Noem, 52 years old, governor of South Dakota. As the first female governor of South Dakota, Ms. Noem is in her second term. After an overwhelming victory in re-election in 2022, she received attention when she refused to impose mandatory mask-wearing regulations statewide during the COVID-19 pandemic. She quelled speculation about her ability to run for office when she early supported former President Trump, but her conservative stance on abortion, as well as media reports that she had an affair with Trump's former assistant Corey Lewandowski, could be an obstacle.